And now, here's a much better way to see George and Gracie. Underwater. What you're hearing is recorded whale song. It is sung by the male. He'll sing anywhere from 6 to as long as 30 minutes and then start again. In the ocean, the other whales will pick up the song and pass it on. The songs change every year, and we still don't know what purpose they serve. Are they some kind of navigational signal? Could they be part of the mating ritual? Or is it pure communication beyond our comprehension? Frankly, we just don't know yet.
Maybe he's singing to that man.
There's a guy swimming.
How did he get in there?
What the hell? Excuse me, wait right here. Excuse me. Excuse me, please. All right, who the hell are you? What were you doing in there?
Yeah, speak up, though.
Attempting the hell to communicate.
Communicate? Communicate what? You have no right to be here.
You heard the lady.
Admiral, if we were to assume that these whales are ours to do with as we please, we would be as guilty as those who caused their extinction.
Okay. I don't know what this is all about, but I want you guys out of here right now, or I call the cops.
I assure you that won't be necessary. We're only trying to help.
The hell you were, Buster. Your friend was messing up my tanks and messing up my whales.
They like you very much, but they are not the hell your whales.
I suppose they've told you that, huh?
The hell they did.
Right.
Hello and welcome to Curtains and Lights, a podcast where we discuss movies directly after watching them. Here is Alex.
And here's Jannik.
And today we're discussing Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, a 1986 movie directed by Leonard Nimoy. And there will be spoilers from here on out.
So we're back for the second part, the analysis, and we're going to start off with a plot summary, because even though we assume that you've seen the movie, it could be a while back, so here's a quick recap so we're on the same wavelength. The plot starts off with a probe approaching Earth, making whale-like sounds. James T. Kirk, who was exiled to another planet for reasons we'll get to later, was on its way back to Earth, but the probe unfortunately evaporated the oceans, I think. Was it the oceans? Yeah, the oceans of Earth, and was jamming communications all over the place. James T. Kirk decided it was a good idea to go back in time to the 1980s, where humpback whales weren't extinct because that probe, like I said, made whale-like sounds, and they had the theory that when they got humpback whales, which have gone extinct in the 21st century, to the 23rd century, where they are, that they can get it to communicate with the probe to make the probe go away. At the same time, while they're in the 1980s, there are numerous subplots going on, including one which involved, I think, Chekhov and Uhura, was it? Yeah, it was Chekhov and Uhura, who were busy looking for material to fuel the spacecraft's reactor, whatever it was, some Star Trek tech, you know. And the other subplot was actually about gathering the whales, and there was a third really small side plot, you could say, that it was about building a tank inside of the spacecraft to hold the water and obviously the whales. So that was a quick summary, and I'm going to go on with explaining the general setting of the movie. So it was, like I said, the fourth installment of the Star Trek franchise. In the previous movie, the Enterprise, the USS Enterprise, as we all know and love it, was destroyed by Captain Kirk by a self-destruct. So in the fourth movie, he was wanted for treason, which is the reason he was wanted at a tribunal at the beginning, but couldn't because the probe unfortunately disrupted Earth's, I'm just going to say system. Communication system, and most first and foremost, climate. Right. So, and in the end of the movie, which is, like I said, the other small thing, they get spoken free. Can you say spoken free?
Yeah.
They get dismissed of their crimes except for disobeying immediate superior, so Captain Kirk gets demoted from Admiral to Captain.
Alright.
And the movie ends with the NCC 1701A, the Enterprise A, being launched.
So, so my first question is, this is my first Star Trek movie. And I haven't seen any Star Trek shows. I've seen like a bit, like a part of an episode of Star Trek Discovery, but this was like the first like full Star Trek based media that you showed me. Why start with the fourth one?
The reason for that is rather dull, actually. The reason is because most of the Star Trek things, except for Star Trek Discovery, which I watched out of my own interest, I think like 2 or 3 weeks back, while I was still in Berlin. Right now, I'm visiting Jannik at his place. So, and yeah, what was I talking about? Sorry.
Why did you show me this one first?
All right. Sorry. Yeah, I showed it first to you because, like I said, like the most of the contact I had with Star Trek was via my father, who my father is a giant Trekkie. I think you know that.
Yeah.
And I remember that he would often see Star Trek 4 because it's considered one of the best Star Trek movies. Like Star Trek 2 and 4 are considered one of the best, and I've just seen 4.
2 of the best.
Yeah. And Star Trek 4, I've just seen it oftentimes when I was younger, so just kind of struck a vibe with me, and that's why I decided to take it.
So that's like the first thing you associate with Star Trek is this movie, probably.
Basically, yeah.
Alright.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but am I really a Trekkie, like, in a way?
I don't know. You have to decide that for yourself.
Okay.
I'm certainly not. Like,
trying to convert you to one.
I might be one soon, but I haven't had much contact with Star Trek. So,
I suppose you start off because...
All right.
Well, actually, I'm just going to quickly get this out of the way. We were taking notes like we always do while watching movies. And my first note is Klingons are death, and I still trying to figure out what I'm saying. Maybe I'm going to come back to this later if I actually figure out what I meant.
Yeah, so
but
like,
you go ahead.
One of my first notes is also rather confusing. It says Genesis equals Christian creation allegory. So, like, something was called Genesis at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, and you weren't sure what it was?
I was asking what it was.
Yeah, I don't know for sure because, like I said, because if I'm brutally honest with you, even though I quite like Star Trek, I've never actually seen Star Trek 3, so it could be that it's something about Star Trek 3 that I've just simply not seen. I assume it's some kind of planet or something.
So, obviously, Genesis is the first book of the Bible. So, I wrote down Christian creation allegory, I think, because, like, I assumed that because something was called Genesis, it might come into play later as a metaphor or something. I don't know. Maybe I completely missed it, or it wasn't really a relevant name. But I wrote it down anyways, and here's my first major arc of this movie is Spock. At the beginning of the movie, Spock being half human and half Vulcan, and Vulcans, as you told me, don't have emotions, and humans...
Well, it's not as simple as that. Do you mind if I explain real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So basically, Vulcans do have emotion, and they're actually rooted much deeper inside of, like, themselves than in humans. But I think in the storyline about 1,000 years back, before the happenings, the story of Star Trek, the what?
The occasions of
the occasions of Star Trek happened. There was a war on the planet Vulcan between between the followers of a philosopher, thank you, of a philosopher that basically had a way of taming your emotions for complete logical control, and for those who would rather follow their emotions. The ones that followed their emotions were thrown, as far as I've understood it, were thrown off of Vulcan and started the Romulan Star Empire, which is relevant in different movies, but not in this movie per se, because in this movie the only real place of interest was Earth.
Right.
And maybe outer space.
But
hold on. So Vulcans do actually have feelings, but they can suppress them at will. That's the distinction. But like you were gonna say, I suppose.
Right, but generally, like, the Vulcan culture is very, like, emotionless, right?
Exactly.
And human culture, obviously, as we know, isn't. And Spock being half human, half Vulcan, he seems at conflict with that, and the intelligence, the Vulcan intelligence test at the start, he's asked how he feels, and he struggles to embrace that he feels. He says that he doesn't understand the questions, but we know that he does understand the question, and he just
Tries to suppress it.
he is. I assume he's ashamed of being half human, or at least like a bit ashamed, and doesn't want to embrace that part of being human about having emotions, but wants to be like full Vulcan, but like he knows that.
So I don't know if this is really connecting to it, but what are you looking for? A pen?
Yeah.
I have a pen for you right here, my friend.
Thank you.
No, one of the things, I'm not sure if it's really applicable here because so we're just having some small technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Okay.
No, so basically one thing that's a bit tricky to explain is because it doesn't strictly happen in the movie, but it happens in the more general Star Trek franchise. And one of the things you said is actually one of the plots of Star Trek Discovery Season 2. So you're onto something. You're onto something. Let me just gonna tell you that.
Later on, I'm actually gonna skip from like pretty much the start of the movie to way into the movie.
All right.
Where he first gets shouted at by Kirk because Kirk says something. Have you got any feelings about that? So it seems like that affects him deeply. He takes it to heart, and then he embraces that irrationality and saves the Russian dude, Chekhov.
Pavel Chekhov.
And Kirk asks him, "Is that the rational thing to do?" And he says, "No, but it's the human one." So he embraces that like human and sort of a double connotation. First, human as in like humane, and second, human as in he's literally embracing
his human traits.
His human traits, and he also does that later on with embracing guessing. First, he's like,
I'm not very good at guessing, he says.
It's not in my field of expertise or something.
I think he said it's not in my nature, even. Like, something as basic as that. I'm not sure quite now.
Exactly.
Right now, but...
So, but then he does guess, because that's like his main character development. He goes from like very hardly trying to suppress his feelings to still not being like overly emotional, but like acknowledging that he has feelings and
being okay with them, like
being okay with them, not being ashamed of them.
Exactly. This is shameless promotion again, but in Star Trek Discovery, that's really fleshed out in a good way. So if you're into Star Trek and you've seen Star Trek 4, I'd highly recommend you watching that.
Does Spock have like a bit in Star Trek Discovery? Is he
in Season 2, he's actually quite a major character.
Oh, okay.
Because, like, the main character of Star Trek Discovery... Sorry, we're going on a small side tangent here, but I'd say it's related because it's Star Trek 2.
Sure.
So Star Trek Discovery happens around, I believe, 30 or 40 years prior to the events of Star Trek for the Undiscovered Country, the Voyage Home. And the main character in Star Trek Discovery, which is Michael Burnham, is the adopted sister. Like, she's adopted, she's fully human, but she's the sister of Spock. So she was raised with Spock together because her humans were killed. Her parents were killed, so she grows up with Spock. And it's a really interesting way to see a human brought up the Vulcan way, and Spock, who is generally half human, half Vulcan, to be raised as a Vulcan too, because you can really see how both of not offspring, but I think you know what I mean, of Sarek and Amanda, whatever her surname is, so the parents of Spock, to see how both children, thank you, my God, how both of the children have their own issues thinking about what's Vulcan and what's human and so on, and I think that's a really good plot point.
Right.
So I didn't quite think about it that much when I was watching the movie, but now that you say it kind of makes it broader. It makes bigger sense in the bigger picture.
Yeah, that was like to be honest, like a lot of this movie doesn't seem like especially deep on like a conceptual level. So this was like one of like the only like really like thematic things I picked up on. There's there are a few other things though.
Mhm.
One of them is like generally, obviously with Star Trek playing in the future
Mm.
and having like all these different races and like nations and whatever.
Mhm.
It doesn't. It's it isn't often that it has the opportunity to talk about like the real world, like. But because this is a time travel movie where they travel back to the 80s, they picked up on like a few like issues at the time, right?
Yeah, okay, sorry. At first I wasn't going what you're going. At first I didn't get what you're going for, but now I get it actually.
Like usually you have to, if you're like a movie that plays far off in the future, you maybe can like do a metaphor to real life or like an allegory to real life, but you can't like talk about literally real life things. So
Mhm.
there were like two social issues of the 80s that I think was talked about in this movie. The
Mhm.
first one was the Cold War, obviously.
Yeah, with Pavel Chekhov going around. Sorry, where do you have nuclear vessels? And as if it was like the most normal thing in the 1980s America, as a Russian dude, go up to the police and say, "Oh, hey, sir, we've got the nuclear vessels." Like, and it really shows like what a like a, in a way, what a ridiculous thing the Cold War was. Like, what was it even for? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's also like really funny because like that's like a very classic like comedy technique, like a person who like obviously isn't like acting normally, but because of his perspective,
We can associate with them.
like we can associate with him, and we like know where the communicative misfit is between like the talker and like the recipient.
Mhm.
So when he asks the cop like where are nuclear vessels, obviously like the joke is that because they're from the future, they think like it's a very like normal everyday thing to have nuclear vessels all around, right?
Mhm.
And the second thing that comes on top of that is that he is Russian. So it's like very suspicious. On top of it being suspicious, even if he weren't Russian. and and then there's the scene where he's captured by the U.S. Soldiers, and he's like interrogated,
Mhm.
and he like straight up says he's from the future and has a ray gun, and they think he's insane. So yeah, that's probably like the funniest subplot.
Mhm. Although I would say it's one of the more interesting subplots, I think it's a funny one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another social issue that was in the 80s, like pretty big,
Mhm.
and was even more of a focus in this movie than Cold War
Mhm.
was the public outcry about whaling.
Mhm.
And whaling was, to my knowledge, banned in most countries in 1985, and the first half of the 80s was generally that the save the whale like era, right? So that is like a one of the first like conservationist efforts, which is why it's also like influential today. Like I remember like when I was growing up, like a lot of like World Wildlife Fund um and Jane Goodall, like these were all like very popular figures because like that was where
Was
event-
Jane Goodall really a popular figure in our youth?
yeah, in my youth definitely.
Like, we're the same age. We had the
Okay,
same
but like in my
bubble. In your
in my
bubble.
bubble, yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's kind of weird because, like, if you know anything about me, and Jannik can probably confirm this, like, until, like, I was, like, age 10, like, monkeys were the shit for me. Like,
Yeah.
you can't imagine. And
Well-
it's really weird because I never actually knew about Jane Goodall because I was more busy with, like, going, oh my god, it's cute monkeys in the television. So it's kind of weird because I would actually more expect me to be, like, the one who knows Jane Goodall, but now I do too because I've read a lot about chimpanzees because I think they're cute animals or whatever.
Right,
Yeah.
so-
sorry.
Jane Goodall, she actually visited the school of my sister, and she met my sister when she was like, I don't know, I think 7 or something. So I have known like of Jane Goodall for a long time, but in general, like that whole issue about like save the tigers, save the chimpanzees, save the elephants, and so on. Like all these like anti-extinction.
Extinctionist movements.
right, like anti-animal extinction movements. These were really popular in the 2000s, and I think they were popular in the 2000s and in the 90s before that because of the Save the Whales movement in the 80s. That was like really the thing that
kicked it off.
That kicked it off. And so it was like a very important issue at the time, and still is, like, to this day.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, absolutely. One thing I've also like, unfortunately, I haven't done a lot of notes because I don't know, I just didn't feel like taking notes. But one of the subplots, or not subplots, but one of the things that I distinctively remember was how they mocked like capitalism in a way. Like they wanted to take a newspaper and they realized they should pay for it, and basically they just immediately said it's a miracle these people even got out of the 20th century. And I think that shows really good because, okay, so I've got to explain this part again, but like the Star Trek Utopia, so the general Star Trek Utopia, sorry about that. The general Star Trek Utopia is a post-scarcity economy future that is very, I don't want to say liberal, but like libertarian. Well, not really, not
it's
libertarian.
Kind of post-capitalist.
It's
right?
Post-capitalist. It's all about individual freedom. It's about dignity and whatnot. Like it's not anarchist or anything.
Because it has a government.
It actually does have
a state.
It has a government, but it's but it's like very liberal, like individual freedoms, and it's very left in a way. Like it's not like liberal.
Yeah,
it's
like
more...
it seems like the state exists like pretty much in the same extent as it does now, but just trade doesn't exist and money doesn't exist. Like,
yeah, that's kind of a good explanation. Although I would say that the state is quite a bit weaker because, I'd say state is quite a bit weaker because it's not a parliament that it gets elected, but it's rather like a federation council where every, like, I don't want a planetary representative comes together, kind of like the Star Wars Imperial Senate or the Galactic Senate. You can kind of imagine the same thing with the Federation Council.
right. I actually have, but the Senate is a parliament. And the Star Trek prequel Senate is definitely like a representative parliament.
Okay, no, in Star Trek it's not really that way. It's more like of a it's more like of a council republic you can think of. Like I don't want to say Soviet republic because it kind of sounds odd, but it's what a Soviet republic was supposed to be before it went Stalinist.
It's more
delegating instead of voting.
It's not really like
sorry.
libertarian left. Like more on the authoritarian left side, but like not really up there on the authoritarian axis.
I'd say it's in the lib left quadrant, and I would say it's very left, and I would say it's like it's like left center, but I would say it's slightly on the lib left side because it's very because it in a way it always protects like the individualist it protects individual rights very strongly.
Right.
And it has like a lot of things like, as far as I know, I think like drugs are legal everywhere there.
Right.
And like gay marriage is like completely common, and it's very progressive. And even though there is a state, I would say the state is not oppressive in any way. So I would say it's more lib than.
Okay, I had another question written down.
Right.
If it's like a world state, why is everything called the USS? Like even German ships, as you told me, like.
I think the USS stands for United Starship.
Oh, so it doesn't have to do anything with the.
Yeah, it doesn't have to do anything with the US.
Oh,
like
okay.
even like Vulcan ships are called USS.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense because it's United Starship for the United Federation of Planets. And one thing you don't know about what there's like a mirror universe that happens in the same timeline, but it's like on a different dimensional plane. Like that's the in-universe explanation, where everything is the same, but instead of the United Federation of Planets, you could basically think of the Earth as the bad guys, which are like a fascist government, the Terran Empire, and their spaceships are called ISS for Imperial Spaceship.
All right.
So it has nothing to do with the US at all.
Okay, because, well, probably like out of universe it probably does. Because it mimics like the
Yeah, it does. Like the reason they named it that way was because I believe in the 60s when the Star Trek franchise was made, there was actually a really new, I just wanted to say a really new Flugzeug, exactly. A really new aircraft carrier?
Yeah.
That was just being commissioned, that was conveniently named USS Enterprise. And well, Gene Roddenberry apparently struck a vibe with it, so he called his spaceship also USS Enterprise, which was the Enterprise we all know and love. Go ahead.
Right. Another thing about like not really the politics of the
Federation.
but more of the philosophy.
Mhm.
I think it was Spock who said it, I think it's like a general like Star Trek thing to say.
Mhm.
Like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah.
So it's also like kind of utilitarian.
Yeah, it is.
And egalitarian because it doesn't have like a ruling class, I guess, that the profits go to.
Mhm.
So
in the J.J. Abrams movie and in Star Trek Discovery, they show that the state can be a bit more on the authoritarian side, but it's depicted in a really good way. I don't want to take away too much, but it's actually a really good thing that actually shows why Star Trek in the movie is like the way it is, like the Federation, or at least how it's displayed to be, is how it is displayed to be, because there was like a lot of trial and error going on before that. And it's really interesting because, like, I'm 100% certain you haven't heard about it, but there's like, there's this secret organization called Section 31, which are like kind of like the shady way the Federation protects its interests, like the not so moral way of doing it, you know, like kind of like the CIA of space.
all right,
like the shitty one.
yeah,
And that happens a lot in Star Trek Discovery, and it really shows how they've learning over time. Like, you
Right.
don't know any of this. I'm kind of sorry about that, but it actually really shows it. So no, I'm telling you no, but
all right. So I have like a question about the context.
this whole podcast is just me answering questions to you and talking about it. Yeah, it's kind of funny because the last podcast you were talking more, and now I talk more because I've seen the movie.
because you chose the movie.
I mean, did you like it? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I don't think it's like a great movie, but it's a good movie. It's a fine movie.
All right.
So I first thought in the first scene where we see where the whales are.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a public aquarium, like Sea Life or something. But then they talk like later about it as if were like a research facility. So I'm really confused. Like, what is it? Is it like a commercial aquarium or like a more scientific?
I think it was like a scientific aquarium that just made like a bit more money by offering tours. That's how I.
Right, because first I thought
like it didn't seem like the complete commercial.
Yeah. Because like first I thought it was, and then I thought it's kind of like a hypocrisy because they talk about like the concern about hunting, where she like shows it on like the screen and stuff like that. But then she contains the animals themselves basically for profit. So I thought like that's kind of a weird hypocrisy. But if it's like that, then I guess that's not as hypocritical as I first thought. So obviously, this movie also has some environmental themes.
Obviously. I mean, like the first, the not the moral, but like I don't remember which character says it, because we had a joint between then and now, so that's not helping right now. But one of the characters basically said that in a way the humans shoveled their own grave by letting the whales go extinct.
Yeah, which is like weirdly forward thinking for the 80s because that's like a talking point like now. And,
I know. I think
how
go ahead.
How the whole like ecosystem works together. Like for example, that's like something like of the planet Earth era, and like for example,
Fridays for Future.
Yeah, but like also like the documentary. Like I've been watching like Our Planet recently. I watched a few episodes with you.
Yeah, I remember when you visited me.
I finished it recently, and the most recent episode was about the high seas, which had like a pretty long section about humpback whales. And it talked about how the whales eat off the krill, and that keeps us balanced between the krill, the plankton, the whales, and the plankton influence than the clouds and the weather in general. So the climate actually, I forgot what like the exact science is, but like the climate actually like accelerates heating up because there's like less plankton in the sea.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know if I'm at all qualified to talk about this, but like I mean I'm a meteorology student in the very first semester,
Yeah.
so I mean I don't really know what's going on, but but at least I have a reason to pretend that I know what's going on.
Sure.
So basically, like the thing with climate is like it's not like a one-way switch. Like you can't just go switch it off and then it just stops, right?
Right.
Like the problem is that even like it could be that we've already reached the point of no return. Like that's up for debate
Right.
still. But like even if you would completely shut off everything right now, it could still be that the climate has reached like a certain point where now the climate is warm enough to let even more water vapor, which is by the way the most potent greenhouse greenhouse gas. Oh my god, greenhouse gas. And the problem is that like water vapor, the problem with it is like it's abundant. Like it's not like CO2. Like CO2 is comparatively rare, but like water vapor is like everywhere.
Right.
Like the ocean's everywhere. Like water is literally everywhere where stuff lives. Literally.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah.
Right.
That was a really butchered
And
explanation.
in the same episode of Our Planet, they
Yeah.
also said
Mhm.
that since the ban in the 80s
Mhm.
of commercial whaling,
Mhm.
every year the humpback whale population has been steadily increasing,
Mhm.
and right now, like last year, there was like the biggest communion of whales that we have recorded in over 100 years.
Nice.
So, fortunately, they made the wrong prediction. The whales are coming back, but it is because of these policies and bans.
Because people back in the day actually did see that we're kind of shoveling our own graves here.
Right.
That's actually one of the other
Well,
reasons.
people always saw it. It's just the oil corporations that put a lot of money into misinforming it.
The thing is, right now, what I'm so you asked me earlier why I expected exactly this movie. I had a few other movies in mind which were completely unrelated to anything Star Trekky. But I actually chose this movie because last week we had Taxi Driver, which could be interpreted like in the way we said in the podcast, basically, like in the alt-right way. And I didn't want to pick like I don't want to say dull movie, but like a political movie.
Right.
So I picked the movie which was the closest thing I could think of, which was resembling politics. And I think there's a lot of politics to be taken out of this.
Sure.
In my opinion. So.
Definitely. And obviously, we already talked about the theme, how we're shoveling our own graves, but the way that's symbolized specifically in that movie is that obviously they need the whales to communicate with the probe. So in a way, it doesn't show like what our actually scientific dependence on whales is, but it symbolizes that dependence. Like because there are no whales, they have like a significantly harder time in diverting the probe and saving themselves. So this is why the whales are important to the plot, and therefore also that environmental message.
One thing that I appreciate, like we're nowhere near the facet, near the conclusion of this beast here. But one small thing I want to take ahead is that not most, but like there's a lot of Star Trek fans out there, especially on r/Star Trek,
Right.
that complain a bit about how the plot never explains where the probe came from or where it goes. But I actually appreciate that. I think it's a good thing because it takes focus away of who causes this all to because it kind of takes like the focus away of that
like
it's someone else causing it to it's our own issue of not being able to deal with it properly.
Right.
And I think that really brings the message across that, like, if a meteor were to hit Earth right now, we would go in a runaway climate effect, like greenhouse effect. Like, I'm sure, like, every billionaire in the world and their son would probably point at the sky and say, "Go look at the bad sky. Like, it threw a meteor at us, and now it's not our fault that we overheated the Earth."
Right.
Even though, like, the real killer was us all along. Like, you know what I'm getting at?
Right. Yeah. It puts the blame away from any external force and just focuses on like, okay, it doesn't matter who brought us into it, but we can change it, so we have to deal with it.
Exactly, and I really appreciated that. Did you see that too, or was it just me right now?
I actually, I didn't think of that, but that's like a smart observation. What I thought about like the probe, both in like the look and and also the way how it just appeared, no explanation, and is sort of mysterious. It reminded me of two different movies.
Yeah, you said that to me while we were watching the movies, and I've seen one of them halfway through. Like one I've seen like excerpts, and the other one I've seen halfway through, but unfortunately I threw up halfway into the movie. Okay, let's not go into too much depth here, but
right.
Yeah.
So first of all, it was 2001, The Monolith. Obviously, I'm not going to go too much into detail here, but the monolith is a very mysterious object, and like we don't know where it comes from. That's kind of it, and also like it looks similar. It has like a similar like scalene black shape, but that's kind of it. What movie I thought more of was Arrival, which
that was the pukey one.
which is the one you saw seen like halfway through. Not only because of the look, because obviously they look similar. It's like both a lengthy thing that's like black
in a way, and shiny,
shiny, and
but
doesn't
uneven.
and doesn't have anything else on it. It doesn't have any windows or actually the Star Trek one does have like that thing.
That weird ball that sticks out. Like the thing I really appreciate about the probe is like you have no idea what is going on. Like you don't know what that thing is, but it really conveys like I don't know, but I think there are few examples that really convey that it really doesn't matter to the plot at all. That whatever it is, it could be a flying rubber duck, and it would still do the trick, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, sort of like a MacGuffin, right? So like a MacGuffin is a term invented by Alfred Hitchcock. It's something the characters care about, but not necessarily the audience, but it is there to kick off the story. So like, but another thing about Arrival that struck me as similar, it's both like a UFO that appears on Earth that changes the situation on Earth in different ways. In Arrival, it has more socio-political tones, and in Star Trek 4, it has more like environmental tones, right?
Exactly.
So, but in a way, it causes a crisis, and also like there's a mystery. Like we don't know where it comes from, and we don't know where it goes, and so that really reminded me of Arrival. And I'm considering doing both 2001 and Arrival sometime in the future on this podcast.
Oh, I'd appreciate it. Like
so. I think Arrival a bit more in the future.
All right.
But definitely both of them are worth talking about in like a long format. They're both like really good movies.
Yeah, from what I've seen of Arrival before, things went south. Let's just say it that way. I did appreciate it, I have to say, absolutely. I kind of lost track of my own thought process, which is kind of sucky right now. What were we talking about before that?
About like the look and feel of the probe.
Oh yeah, exactly. There's that one scene. Even though I'm just gonna wait till you're done pouring your glass of water there.
Yeah.
The one scene that was like, even though like literally nothing was being conveyed on paper, like there was no script at all, but was the scene where the whales communicated with the probe, where you can just hear like the whale sound and then the alien sounds. Like
yeah, it was very like trippy, but like calm trippy.
It was a really good scene. I really like that scene. It's my favorite scene of the movie. I have to say.
You know what my favorite scene is? Kind of similar. It happens pretty much at the beginning of the movie. It's the time travel scene.
Exactly. It looks so good.
It looks so like the effects, the CGI is obviously like not to a high standard as of like today.
But it has
like,
a really nice like a retrofuturistic way.
Yeah, it has like a vaporwave vibe.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it looks like vaporwave.
Because like
imagine somebody took that song from Macintosh Plus and turned it into like an animation. That's probably what it would look like.
Yeah. Especially well, vaporwave would have like a bit more like pastel pinks, But other than that, they had the Greek statues. They had like the weird like vibes with like the empty halls and shit like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really good.
And I really liked that scene. That was like really cool. They made it with like pretty limited CGI, like possibilities, right? But they didn't turn it into a weakness. They like went a specific direction. They didn't try to be super realistic, but like super abstract and like super vapor. Obviously, they weren't going for vaporwave. This is like
1980s.
Yeah, so Vaporwave came out in 2010. This is 1986, right?
86, exactly.
So it's 24 years before the first Vaporwave album. But, like, it still struck that same vibe. And I also like that whale scene. It's, I like whale sounds in general. I don't think that's a hot take. Like, everyone likes, like, the whale sounds. Like, a lot of people, like, go sleep to it.
I mean, I don't do, but like they're not annoying to me anyway.
Yeah,
like they appreciate them, but I wouldn't go out and sleep for them. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, the whale scene was really good. Yeah,
I like humpback whales. They're so cool. They're my favorite whales.
Yeah, you were talking all the time like about how great the movie is because there's humpback. Like at the very beginning, you said if they're actually gonna show humpback whales, if this movie's gonna be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's not actually a 10 out of 10, but still, like
humpback whales.
It's humpback whale. Like besides dolphins, humpback whales are my favorite whales.
All right,
that's basically the most important point about this whole movie.
Exactly. One thing I really appreciated, even though it was like it wasn't anything serious in a way, but more like of a lighthearted thing, was like the very modern people of the 23rd century failing to use technology from the 20th century. Like there's that
like a culture shock.
Exactly. Like there's that really well-known scene from the movie where Scotty takes tries to talk to the computer
by the mouse.
No. First of all, he just goes like computer, and then I believe not Zulu. Who was it? Like McCoy gives him the mouse. Like you need to use the mouse, like in a way. Like, but what does he do instead of using the mouse? Like actually using the mouse, he instead takes it and starts talking to the mouse.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't do the trick, like everyone in the room goes like, why don't you just use the keyboard? And then you can see how he's like you know how 2-year-olds type like with their fingers down.
Yeah.
Like they're.
But he types really fast.
Yeah, he types really fast. That was like the weird thing about it. Like at first he started typing like a 2-year-old, but then he was going like ever faster and faster and faster. That was a really good scene.
Okay, there's like two.
And the other one really good scene was like both the political and technological way when they wanted to get on the bus, but they realized they actually have to pay like a fare. Then they just expected was like they can go off and go wherever they want.
Right.
Which Luxembourg has done recently, and I think it's a really good idea.
Hell yeah, to public publication.
Public transport.
Public transportation. So I am done with like all the major like analysis things. If you have something else, I have like 2 more like very small observations, and other than that, I'm like completely done. I will do my conclusion.
Go with your small points. Like I said, I don't really have anything.
Alright, so the one is like really minor. There was like at the beginning, there was like a space probe. It showed the space probe, and then it showed the ship, the Klingon ship that they were borrowing. And like the edit between it was like really weird, like almost like a jump cut. And I'm not sure if that was intentional or if that was like a sloppy edit, because it could be a reference to 2001: A Space Odyssey, because there's a similar edit between like a bone and a spaceship in that movie, but it might be like really far-fetched.
If I'm dead serious, I think it was actually an issue of the streaming site, because at the very end, while the credits were rolling, like a similar jump cut happened. That was very obviously like a streaming glitch, like a web browser glitch. So I'm not sure if that's actually part of the movie. So
yeah, maybe.
To you. If it would be, and if that would be a reference, like it would be really awesome. But I'm almost certain it's just like a glitch from your computer, because there's your computer. Like I'm talking to it. Oh my god! I just pointed to your TV and saying like there's a computer, but it's right in front of it. So.
Okay, so the other thing was like there was this one scene where Spock like chokes this punk and he falls asleep and his music turns off,
Uh-huh.
and then everyone claps in the bus.
And then everyone started clapping.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing I wrote down. It reminded me of like those Reddit threads.
Like
Where-
when that happened.
Yeah, where like someone said like everyone clapped in the store. So
But I
that's
actually really like that scene, to be honest. It's a really good scene. It's a rather famous scene in the movie.
it's anti-anarchist.
Was
The
it?
punk was an anarchist probably, and they celebrate choking him out and stopping his propaganda. So
I think
actually-
it was just annoying other people.
actually Star Trek is revisionist propaganda.
That's a very hot take, won't you say? One of the things like I didn't wrote down, but I can think of spontaneously right now is how they showed the scenes from Star Trek 3. Like I know it's a really weird thing to nitpick on, but like the scenes they showed of like the Enterprise destruction wasn't like security cameras; it was literally like footage from the scene, you know.
Oh.
And it's like how would the people in universe have that footage? Like
Right.
that's exactly like I know it's a weird thing to nitpick about it, but it was still enough to piss me off. Not piss me off, but you know, like
Okay, I literally don't care because like I'm not a Star Trek fan. but-
no, like it would bother me in every movie, not just Star Trek.
All right.
Like it's a weird thing to nitpick
Yeah, but
on.
I mean, I literally don't care because I wasn't even like aware of it being footage from the previous movie.
It's footage from the previous movie.
Okay.
It's footage of the Enterprise NCC 1701 sub.
Okay, so yeah, but maybe it's like a budgetary thing. Probably.
yeah, it was probably like I wouldn't. It's like, you know, when you did something wrong on a test in school, but it wasn't like strictly relevant, so your teacher would make like an X, but like in brackets,
Yeah.
and would say like it's wrong per se, but I wouldn't give you points off.
Right.
That's basically what I have with it. It's just like it's like a pet peeve.
All right.
And the other thing is, at the very end of the movie, I really appreciate the way they introduced like the new Enterprise, like because like at first they were saying, is it going to be the Excelsior? Is it going to be the Excelsior? Which the Enterprise eventually is going to be in Star Trek Generations. That's not really a spoiler because it happens at the very beginning of the movie, but yeah, it's exactly. But when they zoom on it, you can hear that Star Trek chime, which I really like. Like, you know which one I mean? Yeah, ba 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 ba.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and well, that happens like the Excelsior dips down and like the Enterprise A comes into frame, and I think that's a really well executed scene. I have to say, like it's all miniatures, like
Right. Like Star Wars early on.
Exactly, it was actually Industrial Light and Magic who did this. Special.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was the same company.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting.
but of course, it didn't have the huge budget that Star Wars had.
Okay.
Like Star Wars had like the Runaway, but not a Runaway, but like
How though? Wasn't it already like a really popular franchise? Would you like expect?
yeah, but like it was nowhere near as popular as Star Wars. Like
True,
not even
but, like,
remotely.
I don't know. I think there are like less popular and less famous movies
Mhm.
that seem from that era that seem to have like a higher production budget than this
The
and a
problem-
higher production design level.
Yeah, the problem with the Star Trek movies is that they're like notorious or like like in the I don't want to say in the filming community because like you're way deeper into it, but like inside of the Star Trek community, like it's kind of well known that Star Trek movies have a problem with runaway budgets. Like they often just sometimes go through the roof and no one knows why. Like they just keep going and
Oh,
going
right.
and going, and that's what the thing that happened to the first Star Trek. So. Budgetary concerns is like a weird thing because like they always say like we couldn't do it because budgetary concerns.
They had a lot of budget.
But like they said like you only have like so and so much of budget, but they would blew it like anyways.
All right.
Like you could say like no matter what you would set the budget to, they would blow it.
All right. Should we go to conclusions? Or do you have anything more to say?
I want to say something about the end, like the trial,
Mm-hmm.
where they said that because he saved like I don't know how he says it, but like he goes like that really obvious the obvious bureaucratic way instead of saying like the judge just can't say did great job, saved the earth, you get like spoken free. But that was basically the message of it. Like, and I'm trying to figure out if that's like a good or bad thing? Like if that would be like a fair justice system?
Oh,
I mean, like for us as the
I mean,
viewers,
but,
it's
like,
good
what
because like
was
we
his
want to
only
see more.
crime again?
Huh?
What was his only crime again?
Treason, I believe, and killing Klingons for saving Spock.
Oh, okay.
And like Klingons killed his son, and he lured them aboard the USS Enterprise and then blew the USS Enterprise up. So
I don't know if that's particularly then a good justice system if they just like let you slide because you did something good. That seems kind of weird.
Hmm.
I guess it's like a pardoning system.
Hmm.
So we have that in real life, but I don't really think the pardoning system is that good to begin with. Like especially in the US. Like that like a president can like pardon pretty much anyone out of jail.
I don't quite remember it. Was it like the president of the Federation that held the speech at the end?
I have no idea. I have no idea who all these people are.
I mean, they were introduced in the movie, so you could have an idea, but okay.
Okay, but the guy with the beard, but I don't know who he is.
I think that was the president.
Should we go to conclusions?
Yeah, just one small thing, like that's like a rather shoehorned in explanation for you about how the Federation kind of works in a way. I just want to quickly get it out of the way because we're talking about the president. Like you can think of it's really weird because like even though it's never stated how exactly it works, like you can kind of conclude how it works. Like there is a Supreme Court that's like independent of everything else. That's kind of like the German Bundesverfassungsgericht, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like the US where like the Supreme Court is like the highest court in all instances, but like there's like a separate like normal court and then there's like a constitutional court.
Right.
And then there's Section 31 that wasn't in this movie, but in Star Trek Discoveries, and I'm gonna make you watch it someday.
Sure.
Sure. No, and but there's also like the president, and there's also mention of a prime minister, but he never gets shown in any of the movies. But like all the legislative power like lies at the council, which is made from delegates of the individual planets, and it's more of a confederacy than like a real federation. Like there's like strong governmental on lower levels.
All right.
Like I think like on planetary levels, I think it's like Germany, like where every state has like a right to its own constitution.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for example, I know that Earth is a federacy in itself, while Vulcan, for example, is like a unitary state that's
inside a federacy.
Exactly.
Right.
Instead of a confederacy, you could say more.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, now we can go to conclusion.
So we're back to our conclusions. So I'll start because Alex chose the movie, so he will end with his final conclusion. I thought this movie was good. It's sort of interesting because I know of Star Trek, and now I still kind of know of Star Trek. Like, this movie didn't really show me much about Star Trek because it didn't really, like, explain much about the system of Star Trek. Or
Yeah, and it doesn't really... Sorry.
But it's still, like, maybe that's, like, good because then I can, like, be slowly introduced into it and, like, first have it within a familiar setting. And obviously I liked the themes about whaling and also I guess the Spock's arc is also kind of nice, even though it's like really simple. His conflict with like not wanting to feel until he accepts that. It's like a very simple character development, but it's not bad. In general, also I really like the scenes at the beginning and at the end with the time travel and the humpback whales communicating.
Mm-hmm.
In general, it's like a 6 out of 10 movie. I enjoyed it. I liked it. It wasn't great, and it was certainly like not amazing.
Mm-hmm.
There were some flaws. I thought like the romantic side plot with the marine biologist was a bit like tacked on.
Sure.
Like yeah, because like they probably assumed like every movie needs like a romantic subplot, so they put one on there. But also like some of the production really isn't that good, but some of the production they really chose to do it like in a creative way. So in general, I think like a 6 out of 10. It's fair. It's closer to a 7 out of 10 than a 5 out of 10. So it's like a high 6.
All right. I obviously appreciated the movie. That's the reason why I took this. Maybe later on we're gonna take bad movies, but I'm not there yet. Like I'm first of all getting into good movies because obviously. I like that movie. Like for me, like it's in no way one of my favorite movies, but it's like a movie I just enjoy watching. Like it's one of these movies like that doesn't blow me out of the water, but isn't like boring either. It's just like one of these movies that just keeps me constantly entertained, while not wanting to switch it off or leaving me on my couch just baffled what's going on, like shivering from excitement, you know.
Yeah.
And that's like the thing that like I enjoy about Star Trek. Like it's not like it doesn't blow me out of the water. Like for example, like Star Wars 4, like blows me out of the water. Like it's a really amazing movie. I love it. My favorite movie, Star Trek 4.
Mhm.
Episode 4 is my favorite movie. So, and I really enjoy it because it blows me out of the water every time. But like the Star Wars franchise in general, like it has its downs. Like it seriously has its downs. You know, like Jar Jar Binks. Like there's Jar Jar Binks in it. You know, but like in Star Trek, the thing I really like about Star Trek is like it's never really like super excitingly good. Like okay, at times it is okay. It's kind of a bad thing, but like more often than not, it's just constantly good, and that's the thing I appreciate it because it doesn't always keep like topping itself, but rather, or it doesn't try to do that, but rather it's just constantly good, and that's the reason why I really like Star Trek and especially this movie because I think from start to finish, it's just a good movie, you know.
All right. So what score would you give it?
I would give it probably a 7 or an 8 out of 10.
All right. So thanks for listening to us. This was Curtain and Lights, and next week we're probably gonna go with either Sita Sings the Blues or 2001: A Space Odyssey. I haven't decided yet, but it's probably gonna be one of those. So I'll hope to see you there.